Hello and a warm welcome on behalf of the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung in Stockholm. My name is Gabriele Baumann and I am the head of the KRS Stockholm branch. We work with projects on foreign and EU policy in all 5 Nordic countries, including Greenland. The Arctic is one of our main focuses, as all of the 5 countries are Arctic states. At the same time, we take into account that Germany's attention to the North is significantly growing due to climate change and geopolitical developments. Our topic for today's discussion is the Russian chairmanship in the Arctic Council, its agenda and perspective. We are happy to have with us 2 distinguished speakers from Russia and Norway, Dmitriy Tulupov and Svein Vigeland Rottem, to elaborate on the challenges the chairmanship is facing in the year of the 25th anniversary of the Arctic Council. The official takeover of the presidency from Iceland will be, if I understand it right, an in-person meeting with all foreign ministers of the 8 member states of the Arctic Council and the organizations of indigenous people on the 20th of May in Reykjavik. Norway will be the country to follow in 2 years after Russia. It has always been mentioned that the consensus-based Arctic Council does a great job, even if it cannot act in all spheres. It has an exclusive focus on environment issues and sustainable economic development. But military security issues are excluded of the Council's mandate. It is also important to stress that the Arctic region is considered to be a place of no conflict, consistent dialogue, and low tension. The region is governed by strong international rules, and the Arctic Council is at the forefront of governance. The Norwegian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ine Eriksen Søreide, just recently pointed out that there is no need for more governance structures. On the other hand, the Arctic opens up and there is a need for more rescue capabilities and scientific cooperation due to environmental transformation. The Arctic is warming up more than twice as fast as other regions in the world. That makes the exploration of natural resources more accessible, and longer ice-free seasons enable the pursuit of the development of the northern sea route. Fishing management is also a crucial topic. One of the key questions for today is how Russia sets the agenda during its chairmanship for the next 2 years. Stakes are at the same time getting higher as Russia builds up military on its Arctic coastline, challenging other Arctic states like Norway in particular. Another question, therefore, is how to find ways and maybe structures to talk to Russia about more transparency and confidence building measures when it comes to militarization and great power competition. Big questions to be discussed in 1 hour. I would now like to give the floor to my colleague Mikko from Bremen, who has been dealing with Arctic issues in the foundation for many years now. Thank you.
Welcome everybody also from my part to our online discussion, Russia and the Arctic Council. My name is Mikko from Bremen and I'm a research associate in the Nordic Countries project. A special welcome also to our 2 speakers, Svein Vigeland Rottem, Senior Research Fellow from the Fridtjof Nansen Institute, Norway, and Dmitry Tulupov, postdoc researcher at the Saint-Petersburg State University in Russia. So welcome to you both. Before I give the word to our speakers, some technical announcements. You all in the audience are welcome to send questions and comments through the whole event. And I will take on this question through the discussions then as good as I can. In the beginning, our two speakers will give a short introduction, opening words from each position, and then we go later to the discussion. So without further words, I would ask you, Svein, to start with your opening words, and yeah, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Mikko. Can you hear me well, all of you? Great. I will just start off by giving a short introduction to what the Arctic Council is and what it is not, and of course, why it is important. We could say that the Council has gone from a limited focus on environmental policy cooperation in 1996, when it was established, to being the most important international cooperation forum in the Arctic. And clearly, as you all know, in parallel with this development of the Arctic Council, the Arctic has received increased attention. One of the main reasons is, of course, the large climatic changes that are opening up new opportunities and challenges. Despite the fact that the Arctic petroleum hype has been toned down, and we now rarely hear or read analysis concluding that the Arctic sea lanes will soon outstrip the Suez Canal or the Panama Canal, the Arctic is still on the political agenda, both in Arctic and in states far away from the Arctic Ocean. And many have at the same time claimed that the Arctic would be a scene of global struggle for territory and resources. This is far from the truth. And this conflict discourse has also lost some of its foothold. Still, it pops up regularly. And the Arctic Council must, of course, deal with this narrative of where the region is heading. What the member states of the Arctic Council has done is to argue that the Arctic Council is an arena in which common challenges and opportunities will be discussed. And the Council should not become an arena for political power struggles. It should act as an alternative place to meet in geopolitically strained times. And it has so far made good ground. So what about the future of the Arctic Council and the upcoming chairmanship? The underlying question is what is politically possible and what makes practical sense for the Arctic Council in the future. First, it is important to acknowledge that the Arctic Council is only one of the elements of Arctic governance. The states will, of course, be the main actors, and the law of the sea will be the key legal framework. And this means that given that the Arctic Council is not undergoing some sort of a total transformation into a treaty-based international organization, the Council's main role will be to contribute to knowledge and recommendation based on scientific findings. And these findings and this knowledge can be utilized at the global, regional, national, and local level. Thus, the Arctic Council is primarily a supplier of knowledge and not an international organization with strong mechanisms for following up the binding decisions. And the big and crucial question is therefore how to best use the knowledge about the Arctic that has been developed within the framework of the Arctic Council and its working groups. There is, however, more to the work of the Council, and this really brings us to some of the key elements in our discussion. As you know, all the Arctic states point out that the Arctic Council is the most important cooperative body in the North. Firstly, one could argue that this is strategic considerations that underlie this active approach to the Arctic Council. By supporting multilateral cooperation mechanisms, the Arctic states can constrain any expanding ambitions of non-Arctic states in the region. By demonstrating well-functioning cooperation mechanisms in the region, it also helps to restrain the conflict-oriented discourse we have seen regarding developments in the region. And lastly, the Arctic Council can also curb any competing regimes in the area and ultimately the idea of an Arctic treaty model and some sort of an Antarctic treaty. And this was evident, among other things, in the debate on the incorporation of new observers in Kiruna in 2013. The argument is, and still is, that by adopting a positive attitude towards the involvement of non-Arctic states in the region through observer status in the Arctic Council, one has to a greater extent a firmer hand on the tiller. At the same time, and in continuation of the argument above, for the coastal states, a particularly important point is that the Arctic Council supports the primacy of the Convention of the Law of the Sea, which gives them clearly unique advantages. And this is particularly visible by the fact that in order to become an observer, be that a state, international organization, or an NGO, one must recognize the rights of the coastal states in the area. So, put bluntly and purely strategically, the cooperation itself and its framework is often more important than the actual content of the cooperation. The strategy is in the form and not the content. And through active support for the Arctic Council, the Arctic states deny any competing forms of governance for the region. The Arctic states, of course, want control of developments in the region, be that on management, resource utilization, commercial activity, and so on. And by referring to the work of the Council, they say that the Arctic is not unregulated, is not an unregulated no man's land. And this makes the Arctic Council crucial for Arctic states and especially Arctic coastal states. Furthermore, there are clearly major national differences, and the member states will have different answers to the question, why an Arctic Council? For example, for the US, it is important to be involved wherever the Russians are, while at the same time, the argument is that the Council has a stabilizing function. In the case of Russia, it is important to appear as a legitimate, as it is, an important actor in the North. And the Arctic Council is clearly a good tool in this respect. And the upcoming chairmanship and how this has been presented by Russian authorities clearly underline this argument. Of course, we also find more limited and more idealistic goals. The cooperation facilitates a better understanding of the climate and environmental challenges in the North, and it makes it possible to make wise choices in the Arctic. We can also find more limited goals among medium and small states, for example, Canada, where the Arctic Council has been an important platform for indigenous peoples. But to sum up, what about the future of the Arctic Council and the upcoming Russian chairmanship? One thing that has been heavily debated in the last 5 or 6 years is whether to bring security questions into the Arctic Council. What we have witnessed the last year is that all the Arctic states have agreed that this shouldn't happen. Security issues should not be part of the agenda of the Arctic Council. I think that this debate is, it pops up regularly, but I think for now and in the upcoming chairmanship, it will not head the agenda. A second and important point for the upcoming chairmanship is the role of the observers. Although most observer and especially observer states seem to be comfortable with their position, the debate on how and where they should be included has not ended. An important question in the upcoming chairmanship. And back to my initial point, will there be cooperation and conflict in the Arctic? We could say regarding the Arctic Council that it has a stabilizing function in the Arctic region. And it is not likely that conflict will rise because of Arctic issues as such. And the Arctic Council has been important in this respect, telling this story. And also by creating an arena where Arctic states can find common ground on common challenges and see that there are some common interests here. And especially regarding the sustainable development of the new Arctic. I will not use any more time here. I guess we will get back to some of my points in the Q&A or in the discussion. So thank you for now.
Thank you very much, Svein, for your opening thoughts. And I will give next the word to Dmitriy Tulupov, please.
Thank you very much, Mikko. Dear colleagues, so I will continue Svein's reflections about the Arctic Council, and I will focus on the contents of Russia's chairmanship program. So just several short points and short ideas what this program might look like. On 17th of February, there was a session in the Russian government presided by the Vice Premier Trutnev, where the final draft of the Russian chairmanship program was discussed between top governmental officials. And it is very noteworthy, in my view, that Trutnev emphasized that this program will be subordinated and connected to respective provisions on international cooperation in the Arctic, which were set forth in the strategy for the Russian Arctic zone development until the year 2035, which was adopted in 2020. The general impression, my personal general impression is that Russia will not make some intensive program in some, or lead some intensive diplomacy during the upcoming presidency period. And I agree with Svein that it is very important for Kremlin to show that Russia has no particular ambitions in the Arctic region, or that Russia wants to change some borders, so on. So I think it will be low intensity program, focusing on soft issues instead of hard military security issues. But this does not exclude the possibility and high likelihood that strategic stability of the Arctic region will be discussed by Russian officials. Yes, Svein is right that the predominant consensus is that military security issues should not be included into the mandate of the Arctic Council, but these issues theoretically could be discussed under the auspices of the Arctic Council. And I mean that the Arctic Coast Guard Forum is a very, very interesting platform for raising military security, confidence building measures in the Arctic and North Atlantic region between Russia and Western powers. And it is also noteworthy that the Arctic Coast Guard Forum is mentioned frequently in the Russian Arctic policy discourse. So it emphasizes that the Russian government is very attentive to prospects of this forum. So I think that we will see some developments in this direction. Another point is about climate diplomacy. I think that for Russia, it will be important to maintain high interests of both regional and non-regional powers to the prevention of Arctic climate deterioration. And as far as I understand, there are good prospects in this issue area, because for the past 3 or 4 years, Russia has demonstrated that its companies, especially Novatek, want to contribute to the low carbon economy in the Arctic. And we see the example of Sovcomflot company, the largest shipping company of Russia, which is increasingly using the LNG as a fuel for its vessels. So it's a very encouraging example, and I think that this trend will continue at the same pace. So more and more companies will use LNG as a primary source of energy in the Arctic. Of course, it will be important to raise questions about the reduction of environmental impact by other industrial enterprises in the Arctic, especially old factories like Norilsk nickel, coal mines in Vorkuta region, and these are also essential environmental topics which deserve particular attention. The Northern Sea Road is another very important aspect of the Russian Arctic strategy. As all of you know, the Russian government is attaching very high importance to the increase of cargo turnover across the Northern Sea Road. There have been many rumors about China's impact and China's involvement into the Northern Sea Road development, but according to my understanding, for Russia in the next 2 years, it will be very important to show that not only China, but also other countries are very much welcome as investors, not only into the Northern Sea Road, but also into adjacent coastal areas. And I think it's very important to keep in mind this aspect, because personally I know that there are many assumptions that due to the major deterioration of economic relations between Russia and the West due to the conflict in the east of Ukraine and the civil war in Syria, Russia has turned its eyes to China exclusively. But according to my personal impressions from the communication with governmental officials, it's not true. The Russian government is still very much open to cooperation with Western countries in non-sanctioned sectors of economy, especially telecommunications and environmental technologies. So I think that Russia will make invitation to other countries, and what is more important, the Ministry of Economy and Development, in cooperation with the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, will present some support mechanism for foreign investments, which will be a kind of a model of cooperation between the Russian government and Russian companies with all other foreign stakeholders. And maybe the last point about the delimitation issue in the Central Arctic Ocean, which has been also a very prominent topic in the Arctic discourse. I think that Russia will not initiate some intensive negotiation process about this part of the Arctic Ocean, because practically this area is not the first priority for the Russian economic strategy in the region. In spite of all public discussions and rumors about the significance and hydrocarbon potential of this area, one should acknowledge that in geological perspective, this area is of secondary or even third importance for the Russian oil and gas industry, because environmental challenges and risks associated with plausible development of hydrocarbons around the North Pole outweigh economic benefits which Russia, Denmark, and Canada can get from this activity. I think that as it was announced previously, not only by the Russian MFA, but also by diplomats of Denmark and Canada, the limitation process will be long-term, and it might take several years or even dozens of years. So it's not a hot topic. Instead, Russia can just maintain regular consultations with Denmark and Canada about this region, also showing that Russia does not want to revise any borders in the Arctic. The only sensitive issue which I am really concerned about is, of course, Russia-US relations in the Arctic, especially when it comes to the defining of jurisdiction of the Northern Sea Road navigation. As you know, President Trump and later President Biden showed their adherence to the freedom of navigation operations conduct in the Northern Sea Road area. And it seems that the United States Coast Guard and the United States Navy will continue operations here, and without any confidence building measures and without any major compromise about the status of the Northern Sea Road between Russia and the United States. It is likely that some diplomatic and political crisis can emerge between the two countries, which will add insecurity to the region. But I very much hope that the Russian MFA will take every possible effort to avoid the escalation of these difficulties in the region, and will take the opportunity of its chairmanship in the Arctic Council to find some at least minimum compromise with the United States about the Northern Sea Road. I think I will stop here and will leave more time for the questions and answers session. So thank you for your attention.
Great, thank you very much, Dmitry, for your opening words. And yeah, I mean, there are definitely a lot of topics we can take on. And for the start, I would like to take already the first question, which is kind of related to what I wanted to ask at the beginning. And it's about the sustainable development and the long-term perspective within the member states of the Council in the Arctic. And Pavel Neviatkin from the Arctic Institute asked, would you please share your thoughts on how West and Russian relations can be improved during Russian Arctic Council chairmanship? In what areas such as science and Coast Guard cooperation can trust and confidence be built? And because you both mentioned that Svein said that the Council has a stabilizing function, and Dmitry, you mentioned that that especially the US and Russian relations is like a sensitive point. So how do you see how the Council can have its contribution to this relation development? Maybe Svein can start.
Well, that's a huge question, really, because it has, well, it's several aspects here. To bring in some new issue areas into the work of the Arctic Council could be a venue, but that's, well, it's tough to see what kind of issue area that would be. I think that still working on using the Arctic Council as an alternative arena is really the key here. Not to infuse it with security questions and keep the security questions, well, strengthen the Coast Guard forums or the Arctic Security Forces Roundtable or something like that. But the key message from my side would be that keep on doing the work you've been doing in the Arctic Council for 25 years, because it has worked well, and it hasn't been destabilized in times where the tensions between the Russia and West has been tough. So I think the key message is really to try to work on issues like black carbon. It has been partly a success. Strengthen the work on search and rescue and confidence building. And clearly the concept of sustainable development is something almost everyone can agree that sustainable development is a good thing. It can mean everything. It can mean social prosperity, it could mean economic development, it could mean environmental issues. So it's an encompassing concept that I think all Arctic member states could agree upon is important for the Arctic Council. And one could say that, well, it doesn't bring the most important question to the table, what to do about the tense situation in the Arctic. But I think by being an alternative arena, that's really the key message here. Don't try to fix what's not broken.
I would like to continue and say that maybe the cooperation of border regions could also be a very good option for the building up of dialogue, both in security and non-military security issues. I well remember the discussion which took place 3 or 4 years ago in the Russian International Affairs Council. There was a delegation from the Pew Foundation, one of the leading US think tanks, which is specializing in maritime affairs, and colleagues from the United States were introducing the idea how Chukotka and Alaska could cooperate in the Bering Strait region, and to strengthen cooperation in fisheries, in environmental security, in the maintenance of biodiversity, and other soft issues. And if we have some positive experience in this track of development, we automatically will have good prerequisites for extending this dialogue, maybe to bring this success not from regional to the national level. I'm sure that the Arctic could remain the low intensity non-conflict zone as it was at some periods of the Cold War, and I think it's also very interesting to remember that the meltdown in confrontation between the Soviet Union and the NATO started from the Arctic, because the INF treaty was concluded and was started to implement from Murmansk region, from the Murmansk initiative of Gorbachev. And it's very symbolical, I think. When it comes to more sensitive issues like military security, I think that for Russia, it's more important to raise and discuss these issues on more general platform like Russia-NATO Council. And as far as I know, for the Russian Ministry of Defense, it is one of the primary goals to resume cooperation and talks with NATO officials at this more representative platform. And the Arctic Coast Guard Forum can also be some regional affiliate of the Russian NATO Council communication. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for your thoughts. I would like to come back to one thing you said, Dmitry, about that Russia will bring up strategic stability, that this will be discussed during the chairmanship also in the Arctic Council. And in that relation, I would like to bring another question. Unfortunately, I can't see the entire name, but the question is, in Russia's Arctic strategy from 2020, the question of sovereignty is moved on one notch up. And when comparing to the Arctic strategies from 2008 and 2013. So economic questions and concerning the discourse of Arctic as a resource base is increased in the focus of Russian government policy, Arctic policy. So do you think that Russia will, in the chairmanship, bring like this economic development? You mentioned the Northern Sea route also as a strategic discussion also in the chairmanship.
Thank you for this question. It was written by Jürgen Staun. So I think that of course the chairmanship in the Arctic Council is a very favorable momentum for Russia to raise the question of at least partial lifting of sanctions, at least by the European Union. And I think it's obvious that this is one of the core priorities in the contemporary Russia foreign economic strategy. And I think that the higher ranking of economic questions in most recent version of the Arctic strategy of Russia is quite consistent with this point. I think that Russia will definitely try to erode this economic economic siege, which is definitely exist now in relations between Russia and the West, and I think that the most relevant option is to define the spectrum of industries which most likely will be excluded from the Western sanctions burden, and which are interesting and essential for Russia. As I mentioned previously, it could be transport, communications, internet, telecommunications, satellite communications, also some cooperation in the Arctic agricultural sector, and something more. The most promising partner in this investments cooperation, economic cooperation, I think will be Finland and also Germany. It is highly unlikely that Russia will be able to attract some shipping companies to the use of the Northern Sea Road, because as I know it, several large container companies have already expressed their unwillingness to use the Northern Sea Road instead of the Suez Canal. And to put it frankly, the Russian government and especially the Ministry of Transport does not have any hopes that the Northern Sea Road will become an alternative to the Suez Canal. I think there are two parallel discourses in this issue. One is for public, for general public, which exploits the point that the Northern Sea Road is the future of the global maritime industry, and another parallel discourse, which is not visible for the public audience, is more practical, and I think that Kremlin does not have any huge expectations here. One interesting idea which is being discussed now is another option how to develop cooperation between Western Asian companies and cargo owners and Russia. The idea is to create a national Arctic line, which will operate between Murmansk and Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky. So we have two transshipment hubs in these two points of the Northern Sea Road, and container cargo is transshipped from non-ice class container vessels to ice-strengthened container vessels owned by Sovcomflot or by Rosatomflot. And these shuttle tankers, which have the highest ice class, they go from Murmansk to Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky and in the opposite direction. And they bring container cargo between these 2 points. The idea is interesting, but still it needs more elaboration. And I think that maybe Russia can bring this idea to more inclusive discussion also by foreign stakeholders. So we have some options for the future. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Dmitry, you said that there are two parallel kind of discussions going on. The one is more publicly visible and the other one is not so visible. But so that raised me the question, because I also, of course, see personally, I see more the public discussion also. So how much, to most of you, how do you see, how is this public discussion, which is also quite of polarizing, and where like this military tensions and the tensions in international relations are pointed out so excessively, how this affect or might affect the Arctic Council, that the Arctic Council, as you said, is focusing on what it's good at, what it has been good at the last 25 years. So how does this public perception kind of influences or forces the council to approach certain things differently, like sustainable development, economic development, and take, after all, certain security issues into account?
Could I just add to the couple of points of Dmitry first? I think first we have to acknowledge that it shouldn't come as a surprise that Russia is increasingly focusing on economic issues in the Arctic. It is the biggest Arctic state and it has legitimate and legal rights in the region. So people will discussing, well, now the Russia is taking over in the Arctic. Well, any state would do that if the ice was melting and the climatic changes were so huge. That shouldn't come as a surprise. But to your question on how the Arctic Council addresses this public discourse on conflicts in the Arctic. Well, first, it's nothing new that there has been huge debates after the Cold War as well on security issues in the Arctic. The flag planting in 2007 was heavily debated, more heavily debated than now, and security issues was high on the Arctic agenda. And in 2014, clearly, when the Crimean crisis were at the top, this also were heavily a huge debate and addressed by all Arctic states. But if we look at how the Arctic states met this public debate or the broad geopolitical or global security questions, we had the Ilulissat Declaration in 2008, for example, where the Arctic Council states met and said that the law of the sea is the key legal framework in the Arctic, and it should be like that. We all agree upon that, and that's the basic stabilizing function here. So that was in 2008. In 2014, okay, there were some meetings that were boycotted, a SAO meeting in Moscow, for example, in 2014, and Lavrov didn't attend the ministerial meeting in Canada in 2015, but it faded away. It didn't destroy the Arctic Council or the Arctic Cooperation. And we find a renewal of the Ilulissat Declaration in 2018. So this is not something new. And what we have seen, as I mentioned previously, was that this debate on security, it went back and forth and bringing security into the Arctic Council. It went back and forth in Canada, in Denmark, in Russia, in Norway. But after discussing this in a sober and informed way, they found that the Arctic Council is a stabilizing arena, and it should stay like that. And it's kind of interesting. It has to a large extent been a success, I would say. So I don't think that, well, of course, we don't know what will happen in the future, and the global tension could rise even more, but that some sort of an conflict arising from Arctic issues as such that will lead to a global conflict, well, I don't see that at all. So I think, again, all Arctic states, both non-coastal states and the other states, see that we have some common challenges here, be that on persistent organic pollutants, on mercury, on search and rescue, and so on and so forth. And we need to, well, it's in our common interest to keep the Arctic Council as it is, as a knowledge compiler and based on scientific findings, and create an arena where one could meet below the level below the politicized and securitized level of international politics. So, and I think this seminar and Dmitry and I, is part of our job to tell this story, partly to lower tensions. Clearly, we don't know what will happen, but to say what's some sort of the reality, and not infuse the Arctic debate with and blend it all together and try to, and then conclude that there soon will be conflict in the Arctic.
Okay, thank you very much. Dmitry, do you want to add something? Otherwise, there are 2 or 3 questions also from the audience. I will take them in the discussion. Also, Dmitry, you mentioned earlier, like different platforms, like the NATO Russia forum, also to discuss like the more military security issues. And so Stefan Wolf also asked, do you see potential role for the OSCE in managing relations between different Arctic member states? And because I think many security issues are not exclusively related to the Arctic, so how much like these more broader platforms can provide to these relations.
Thank you to Stefan Wolf for these interesting questions. I think that especially if we remember the history, how the conference and later organization on security and cooperation in Europe was taking shape, it is very important that confidence building measures were elaborated and implemented as legally binding provisions in this particular structure in the OSCE. Actually, they were discussed very actively by Norwegian, Swedish, American, and Soviet experts in international relations in late 1960s. And this was a very constructive collaboration, very constructive work, which really promoted the improvement of relations between two hostile political actors in the Cold War. Of course, in my subjective view, we cannot say that today we are witnessing the Cold War 2.0. In my view, it's not true, but still the potential of the OSCE to regulate confidence building measures at the institutional level is very good and relevant also for Russia and the West. So I think, yes, theoretically, OSCE can be very relevant at this stage of relations.
Great, thank you very much. So we have
partly say
sorry,
some words
course,
on that as
Svein.
well, because that brings me back to my point as well, that we need to see that Arctic issues are global issues and global issues are Arctic issues. So to like say that this is an Arctic issue and this is a global issue, and that's not the right way to go. So if there's alternative arenas to discuss security questions and confidence building measures, yeah, we should. But again, not bringing security into the Arctic Council.
Great, thank you very much. We still have a couple of minutes, so I will bring another question from the audience. Inga Relf asked, do you see the ambition of the Central Arctic Transpolar Shipping Lane coming to fruition, especially as Russia has a big order book for nuclear ice-breaking ships? And this is connected also to another question from Stefan Wolf again. How do you perceive the Russian presidency will deal with the increasing interest of China and others in the Central Arctic Sea route? We already mentioned it a little bit, but maybe you can point out from China's perspective also, maybe.
If you let me, I will make a small comment on this question about China's role in the Central Arctic Sea Zone. I think that the capacity of China to operate independently in the Arctic Ocean is still a little bit exaggerated so far. Of course, in the long term, one could expect that not only merchant, but also naval presence of China can become a part of reality in the Arctic security. But at the present time, we have no particular evidence to claim that China can physically navigate in the Arctic Ocean independently, because it has no powerful nuclear icebreakers. It has no, I mean, the COSCO, the largest Chinese shipping company, it doesn't have any ice strengthened vessels. And I think that even in the Northern Sea Road, the Chinese performance is very dubious, I would say, because on the one hand, we see the rise of the number of vessels traversing the Northern Sea Road annually in the east-west direction. But if we have a closer look at these statistics, we will find out that it's not container vessels. This is multi-purpose vessels which bring some equipment from China, South Korea to Yamal Peninsula, or make a transit voyage from a Chinese port to a European port. So this participation of China in the Northern Sea Road development is nominal so far. And it's China has already indicated that it will be ready to make massive investments into the Northern Sea Road infrastructure and to building of railroads in the Russian Arctic only when the Russian government will make first steps towards the preparation of ground. Only when Russia will make first major investments into this common enterprise. So I think that China's role, both in economic and military terms, at least in the near term, will be very moderate. Yeah.
I think Dmitry makes an excellent point here, that we have to look at what is really happening in the Arctic and not, well, building up this discourse on what should happen, on what could happen in the long term. We have to focus on what is actually happening. That should be the starting point of any discussion about the Arctic. And what you say about China's ambitions, we have to do in-depth analysis of what's possible and what's economically feasible before making tabloid portraits of the region. So trying to look at what is actually happening, and then we can discuss the matters more in depth. So I do agree with you, Dmitry.
Thank you, Svein.
Right, thank you very much, both. So to wrap up a little bit this discussion, I will take on a question that came earlier in the chat today. So you both can give like your final thoughts maybe, and then we can close this discussion also. So the question earlier was, what is the focus areas during the Russian chairmanship, and what goals do the Russian government has? So I would include it in the questions, what from your both side are now the most important, most pressing issues for the Arctic Council and for Russia to focus now. And when we not talk about security, you already mentioned it to some extent, but to have a conclusion, what are the most important issues to focus in the Arctic Council now, in your perspective?
Yeah, I will just make a short point that if we sum up everything what we mentioned today, I think for Russia it will be essential to improve relations with the West by using the point about extended cooperation in the Arctic. So Arctic will be some sort of an instrument of relations improvement with the West. So in several words, I pass the word to Svein, please.
I do agree, Dmitry. I think that there will be not many surprises during the Russian chairmanship. Still important for all Arctic coastal states is to keep the Arctic Council as the place to discuss Arctic issues that are not too politicized and too securitized, and this is an excellent arena where we could find common ground on some issues. And I think that using the word sustainability kind of add to this, because it could be used to everything. It means like everything. So everyone can agree, again, as I said earlier, that we should have a sustainable development of the Arctic, and the Arctic Council is a nice arena for discussing the future of the Arctic. So my final point, really.
Great, thank you very much to both of you for these final thoughts. And yeah, with these encouraging words, I will close our discussion for today. And thank you, Dmitriy and Svein, very much for your time and for your contributions today. And thank you also to the audience for your very interesting and broad questions and contributions to the discussion. And yeah, I will give the final word to Mrs. Baumann again, and thank you all very much.
Yeah, I would also like to thank you, because you gave us a very interesting insight in what we cannot hear every day. This is why we're very grateful for you, Svein, for you, Dmitriy, that you took part today, because I think it was really good to have this thought about stabilize, how you can stabilize the region, how you can build confidence, how you can build up trust, and what is needed in order to do this, and that the Arctic Council is doing a great job. And it's I liked what you said, Svein, that you don't have to fix something which is not broken. So we can just go on and really focus on what is actually happening in the Arctic. This is what we are doing as the Konrad Adenauer Foundation. We have certain projects on the Arctic, and I would like also to have a follow-up on the Arctic Council Chairmanship, maybe in a couple of months, in order to see what is continuing to happen, and what is the outcome of the agenda setting we heard about just today. Thank you again, and have a good rest of the day and holiday tomorrow. Thank you.